On a cold November day in 2016, investigators in Knoxville, Tennessee, uncovered one of the most gruesome crime scenes in the town's history. A human head was discovered boiling in a pot on the stove. The remains belonged to Lisa Guy, a mother and devoted wife. In the bathroom, 2 bins filled with dismembered human limbs were soaking in a toxic chemical mixture. This shocking scene unraveled a tale of betrayal, greed, and the horrific acts committed by none other than Lisa and Joel Guy Sr.'s son, Joel Michael Guy Jr. The discovery left seasoned investigators shaken, as the brutality and planning involved were unlike anything they had encountered before. It wasn't just a crime of passion, but a meticulously planned act rooted in cold calculation. The sheer level of violence and the post-mortem mutilation indicated a chilling disregard for human life. Authorities were not only tasked with collecting evidence, but also with unraveling the psychological and financial motives that had driven a son to commit such unimaginable horrors against his own parents. Beyond the gruesomeness of the scene itself, investigators were struck by the eerie silence that filled the house, a stark contrast to what had once been a warm and loving family home. What had led to this horrifying act of violence? And how could a son, raised in a caring environment, commit an atrocity so cold-blooded that it would haunt law enforcement officials for years to come? These questions would guide the ensuing investigation as authorities pieced together the chilling puzzle of the Guy family murders. From the outside, the Guy family seemed to embody the American dream. Joel Guy Sr., a seasoned pipeline engineer, had worked hard for decades, building not just a career, but a family life that many admired. Lisa Guy, nurturing yet determined, balanced a demanding job with the responsibilities of raising children. Her stepdaughters from Joel's previous marriage and their only biological son, Joel Jr. Together, they were a blended family shaped by time, shared memories, and the ordinary joys of suburban life. Their house on Golden View Lane wasn't just a building, it was a symbol of everything they had built together. Photos lined the walls, holidays were celebrated with warmth, birthdays remembered with care. And now, as the years of long work hours and life's unpredictabilities faded behind them, Joel and Lisa were looking forward to something rare: rest. They had bought a new home in a quieter part of Tennessee, closer to the countryside. A place where morning coffee would be sipped on a porch, where grandkids could visit, where stress had no business intruding. Their Knoxville home was already on the market, boxes half-packed, retirement papers filed. One last Thanksgiving in the family home was their way of marking the end of one chapter and the hopeful start of another. But it wasn't a simple holiday reunion for everyone. Joel Jr. arrived from Baton Rouge, where he lived alone in an off-campus apartment. At 28, he was no longer a college student, though that fact wasn't widely known among the family. On paper, he was still enrolled at Louisiana State University. In reality, he had withdrawn from his plastic surgery program and hadn't worked a single job. No income, no ambitions, just quiet dependence. He didn't speak much about his life. He didn't share future plans. When he visited home, he often kept to himself, shut away in his old bedroom, headphones in, meals eaten in silence. His sisters had learned not to expect too much from him. His mother, on the other hand, still believed he'd find his path. But that Thanksgiving, he surprised them all. He laughed, he chatted, he played with the kids, even the ones he'd never learned the names of. It felt odd, like someone rehearsing normalcy. Michelle, one of Joel Sr.'s daughters, would later recall the strange warmth he showed, the way he lingered in conversations, the way he observed everyone with just a bit too much attention. She didn't say anything then. Why would she? Maybe after all these years, Joel Jr. was finally opening up. But in hindsight, those moments weren't signs of growth. They were signs of calculation. What no one at that table knew, what no one could have imagined, was that the holiday they were celebrating together would never be repeated. That the laughter would be the last ever heard in that house. That something dark was already moving beneath the surface, inching toward the unthinkable. In just a few days, the Guy family's story would no longer be about retirement or reunions or holiday memories. It would become something else entirely, A mystery that would horrify detectives, devastate a community, and spark headlines across the country. And it would all start with a single unanswered phone call. Monday morning arrived quietly in Knoxville. The long weekend was over. Back to routines, work, and responsibilities. For Lisa Guy, this was to be one of her last days on the job. After years of dedicated service at Jacobs Engineering, her colleagues had planned a special retirement party. Balloons, cake, kind words, an office farewell for someone who had given her all. But Lisa didn't show up. No call, no text, no email, just silence. It wasn't like her. Lisa was dependable to a fault. She never missed work without explanation, and this wasn't just any day. This was her send-off, her goodbye, her last time walking through those office doors. Her boss, Jennifer Whitehead, felt uneasy. At first, she tried to rationalize the absence. Maybe Lisa was delayed. Maybe there had been a miscommunication. But when repeated calls to both Lisa's home phone and cell went unanswered, worry turned to dread. Something wasn't right. She picked up the phone and dialed 911.
Knoxville Police Communications Center. Yes, I have an employee that has not reported for work today, and highly unlike her. I've tried calling her home number, I've tried calling cell phone, and can't get a hold of her. What can we do about that? Can somebody go by and check on them?
Yeah, do you know her address?
I do.
What is that?
It is Golden View Lane.
Okay. And what is your name, ma'am?
My name is Jennifer Whitehead, Whitted.
And what company are you with?
Jacobs Engineering.
Okay, what's the employee's name?
Lisa Guy, Guy. Her husband's name is Joel, Joel.
Should he be there too? Does he live with her?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
And they do have a dog named Jake. I think he's a big baby.
Okay. How old is she, do you know?
She is in her, I think, late 50s.
Do you know if she has any medical issues?
No, I mean, she has high blood pressure, but that's all that I know of. Yeah, I know that their house is for sale, and they are moving, and she is leaving our company, but that's supposed to be Friday, and this definitely isn't like her just not to show up.
I'll send a call over to officers, have them swing by and check on her. And if anything changes before then, just give us a call back here, okay?
At the same number?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A patrol officer, Stephen Ballard, was dispatched to the scene. Upon arrival, he knocked, rang the bell, peered through windows. Nothing, no movement, no voices. The gate around the back was locked. He left, nothing visibly out of place, no immediate cause for alarm. But Jennifer couldn't shake the feeling. An hour later, she called again. Insisted something was wrong, that Lisa would not just disappear. This time, Detective Ballard returned to the house, accompanied by Detective Jeremy McCord. Together, they examined the exterior again, closely. Something was off. There was no real estate lockbox, even though the house was for sale. Through a window, they could see bags of groceries strewn across the floor. Items that would have spoiled if left out for days. The back door appeared to have been tampered with, the doorknob missing. None of this made sense. Not for a couple on the verge of retirement. Not for Lisa. The detectives made the decision to enter. They moved through the garage and stepped inside. Immediately, the heat hit them. A suffocating wave of warmth, unnatural for a mild November day. The thermostat was maxed out. The air was heavy with a strange chemical odor. Their eyes watered. Their skin tingled. Something was very wrong. Grocery bags with milk and meat sat unopened. The formal dining room was eerily staged. A red velvet cake, untouched, surrounded by a lineup of long guns. It looked like a celebration and a war zone had collided. But it was only when they ascended the stairs that the true gravity of the situation revealed itself. Nothing could have prepared them for what they would find next. And yet, the horror wasn't finished revealing itself, not even close. The house was about to give up its secrets, and the answers would point in one direction, towards someone who had shared Thanksgiving dinner just days before. The upstairs hallway was quiet, too quiet. As detectives Ballard and McCord moved deeper into the Guy family's home, their senses heightened. The smell of chemicals grew stronger, now burning in their nostrils. The heat wasn't just uncomfortable, it was oppressive, like the house itself was sweating secrets.
I actually feel a tingling on my forehead from the time that I entered the home. As we continue on and start up the steps, the heat is more intense. It seems to be getting hotter.
Then they saw it. At the end of the hallway, something lay on the floor. At first glance, it looked like debris. But as they approached, their stomachs turned. Hands, two of them, human, one upright, one curled into a tight, unnatural fist. No signs of life, no screams, no attackers, just silence in this horrifying tableau.
Oh my God. Cut people's hands?
They backed out of the house. No longer a welfare check, no longer a missing persons case. This was something else, something darker. They radioed for backup. Within hours, forensic investigators swarmed the house on Golden View Lane. As they combed through each room, the scope of what had happened began to take form. Reddish-brown stains stretched across the staircase walls. A bathroom sink, filled with a strange mix of water, a blade, and something else, unidentifiable at first glance. In the kitchen, a massive stock pot sat on the stove, still warm. Inside was something that even seasoned officers couldn't process immediately. It would take later analysis to confirm. But in that moment, a gut feeling settled over everyone in the room. This wasn't just a murder scene. This was a message. What they found wasn't the result of chaos. It was organized, controlled, clinical. Room by room, the house painted a picture. A narrative, a timeline of violence. Yet for all the blood and damage, there was one thing conspicuously absent: any sign of the couple's only son, Joel Jr. And so the question sharpened. Where was he? It didn't take long to track him. Still in Baton Rouge, still going about his routine, or so it seemed. But in the trunk of his car, officers found something that made the investigators' blood run cold: a meat grinder. This was no robbery gone wrong, no random intruder. The pieces, once scattered, were beginning to form a complete and terrifying puzzle. A portrait of premeditation, of betrayal, and of a killer who had walked through the front door not as a stranger, but as a son. The kind of evil no one saw coming.
Authorities have taken 28-year-old Joel Michael Guy Jr. into custody. Guy is a college student in Louisiana. The Knox County Sheriff's Office called the crime scene gruesome. Investigators say the parents suffered multiple stab wounds and were dismembered. The Sheriff's Office says the couple was last seen Friday. WBIR 10 News anchor Kendall Morris joins us from West Knox County, where the couple's remains were found in their home Monday.
It would be described as horrific, a very gruesome crime scene.
Sheriff's officials say they found the remains of the guys inside. Investigators say Joel Guy Jr. stabbed, cut up, and placed the remains in an acid-based solution to destroy evidence.
Some of us have seen scenes like this. They are very, very rare. It's in the 1 percentile of homicides in the United States that involve mutilation or dismemberment.
Investigators are still working to find a motive.
I don't think anybody can imagine to the extent of the horror that went on.
As detectives processed the scene, something near the stairs caught their eye. A backpack, tucked just out of sight, as if hastily abandoned. Inside, among other personal effects, they found a black spiral notebook. At first glance, it looked ordinary, but as the pages turned, so did the investigators' stomachs. This was no school journal or travel diary. It was a chilling manuscript, written in Joel Jr.'s own hand. A step-by-step guide, supplies to buy, procedures to follow, warnings to himself. Notes like, minimize things I touch, and bring blender and food grinder, grind meat. The detectives stared, stunned. They weren't piecing together a motive. They were reading it. Joel Jr. had not only killed, he had choreographed the entire event like a performance. From the moment he walked through the door on Thanksgiving Day, everything was part of the plan. Every interaction, every smile, every moment of feigned warmth, it had all been rehearsed, and it hadn't started that week. The notebook entries began weeks before the murders. Joel Jr. had purchased chemicals on multiple trips. His search history revealed a disturbing pattern. Looking up the effectiveness of various substances, researching decomposition, and how to destroy biological evidence. There was no impulse here, no moment of madness, only cold surgical calculation. With each page, the horror deepened. In court, the book would be referred to as the Book of Premeditation. In the eyes of the jury, it would be the smoking gun, a silent confession from a son who spoke almost nothing in his own defense. Joel Jr. didn't run after the killings. He didn't hide. He simply drove back to Louisiana and sought treatment for a cut on his hand. Calm, composed, as if nothing had happened, as if the lives he ended and the nightmare he left behind were nothing more than an inconvenience.
And where did he go? Where was he arrested? At his apartment. He wasn't fleeing, he wasn't hiding, he went home.
The motive, once unclear, now stared investigators in the face. Money. Joel Jr. had spent years living off his parents, rent-free, jobless, supported by their generosity, especially his mother's. But with retirement imminent and financial support about to end, he saw no path forward, no life he wanted to live. Not unless he took it. If both parents were gone, he would inherit the house, the cars, the life insurance, all of it. He wouldn't need to work, wouldn't need to grow up, wouldn't need to change. And for that fantasy of freedom, he chose murder. With the Book of Premeditation now in their hands, and Joel Jr. under surveillance, detectives worked backward, rebuilding the timeline minute by minute. It all came into sharp focus on Saturday, November 26, 2016, just 2 days after Thanksgiving. Lisa Guy had left the house that afternoon to run a routine errand, groceries from the local Walmart. Surveillance footage later showed her at checkout, smiling slightly, bags in hand, completely unaware of what was unfolding back home. At the same time, Joel Jr. was spotted at the same Walmart, but he wasn't buying snacks or shampoo. He was purchasing chemicals, bandages, and ointments, items designed not to care for someone, but to cover up something. According to the prosecution's timeline, it was shortly after Lisa left the house that Joel Jr. made his move. He attacked his father, Joel Sr., in the upstairs exercise room. The struggle was brutal. Blood evidence showed a violent altercation, signs that Joel Sr. fought hard, but was ultimately overwhelmed. Over 40 stab wounds, no hesitation, no mercy. When Lisa returned home minutes later, groceries in hand, she walked into a nightmare. The bags dropped to the floor, her keys still in hand. There's no evidence she even made it upstairs before her son struck again. She was stabbed more than 30 times. It wasn't enough for Joel Jr. to kill. He needed to erase, to destroy, to ensure that no trace of the crime could be linked back to him. That's when the chemicals came out, the containers, the stock pot, the heat, the smell. This wasn't just about eliminating his parents. It was about eliminating the evidence of them. Neighbors never heard a scream. No one suspected a thing until Lisa failed to show up for work. But by then, the damage was done. The home, once filled with warmth and holiday cheer, had become a stage for something inhuman. In Joel Jr., he was already hundreds of miles away, bandaging the wounds he received in the process, both literal and psychological. But for every cut he tried to hide, he left a clue behind. Surveillance footage, purchase receipts, DNA on weapons, fingerprints on chemical bottles, notes in his own handwriting. It was as if he believed he'd covered every angle. yet had underestimated the one thing he couldn't control: the persistence of grief and suspicion. His mother's absence was noticed, his behavior unraveled, and the blueprint he thought would secure his future instead secured his conviction. The courtroom was packed. Family members, friends, press, all sat shoulder to shoulder, waiting for the story that had haunted Knoxville to finally be told in full. On one side sat the prosecution, armed with evidence so abundant it defied belief. On the other, Joel Michael Guy Jr., silent, emotionless, still. He didn't testify. He didn't cry. He barely reacted as the most graphic and personal moments of his life, in the lives he took, were laid bare before a jury. Over 700 pieces of evidence were presented: surveillance footage from Walmart, the stock pot from the stove, the blue chemical tubs, photographs of the scene so horrific they made jurors visibly wince. But most damning of all was the notebook, page after page, a map of malice written in his own hand. The prosecution didn't have to speculate about premeditation. They could read it aloud, and they did.
Get sledgehammer, crush bones. Bring blender and food grinder, grind meat. Get bleach, denature proteins. Get plastic bin for denaturation process. Does not matter where they're killed. Just get rid of bloody spots to prevent evidence of time of death.
Family members took the stand. Michelle Tyler, Joel Jr.'s half-sister, spoke about Thanksgiving, the eerie shift in his demeanor, and the blue containers she had spotted in his car just days before the killings.
This day was a little different. It was always more, the typical time with Dad and Lisa was more laughing and banter, but if Joel Michael Jr. was there, he wasn't ever hanging with us doing that banter. He would be in his room.
And at some point, did he interact, though, with your children?
The Thanksgiving was different. The Thanksgiving was completely different. The moment that I arrived, Joel Michael Jr. was talking to us, and he had never. I'm not sure Joel Michael Jr. knew my kids' names, and so for him to talk to them was odd.
Others described the generous nature of Lisa and Joel Sr., the way they had supported their son for far too long, and the growing concern over how dependent he had become. Then came the motive: money. Joel Jr. had spent nearly his entire adult life funded by his parents. As Lisa approached retirement, it became clear that his lifeline was ending. Witnesses recalled conversations in which Joel Sr. and Lisa planned to cut financial ties with their son after Christmas. They wanted him to grow up, stand on his own. That decision, loving though it was, sealed their fate.
Well, the week before, they were at the house and we were talking about what they were going to do, and they said that they were going to wait till Christmas to talk to Joel Michael, that they were going to have him to start paying his bills and stuff.
The defense tried to argue mental instability, but it was weak. Too much planning, too much control, too much deliberate action. Even Joel's only friend, Michael McCracken, took the stand. The two had known each other for nearly a decade. When he was arrested, Joel Jr. made a jailhouse phone call to McCracken, the only time he showed any visible emotion during the entire trial. Not when the crime scene was described, not when the notebook was read, only when the last sliver of personal connection reappeared. But that moment of humanity came too late. On October 2nd, 2020, Joel Michael Guy Jr. was found guilty on all counts. 2 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of felony murder, and 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. The jury's decision was unanimous. His sentence? 124 years behind bars. Parole eligibility, April 30th, 2136. A future he will never see. And while justice may have been served, the scar remains. Lisa's mother died just days after learning her daughter had been brutally murdered, collapsing under the weight of the horror. Michelle, through tears on the stand, spoke directly to Joel. "You didn't just take their lives, you took ours too. The future we should have had." When the gavel fell, the courtroom was silent. No victory cries, no cheers, only the heavy weight of justice landing on a man who had turned against the very people who gave him life. Joel Michael Guy Jr. was led away, expressionless, into a future as cold and sealed as the notebook that doomed him. Behind him, he left a home that had become a grave, a family shattered beyond repair, and a town still trying to understand how something so calculated, so savage, could happen inside the walls of a quiet suburban home. There were no signs of madness, no sudden snap. There was planning, lists, timelines, precision, and behind it all, a motive so mundane it chilled to the bone: money. Lisa and Joel Sr. were parents who gave everything, not just financially, but emotionally. Lisa, in particular, had made her son the center of her world. She was his biggest advocate, his provider, his protector. And in return, he reduced her to a checklist, a task, a step in a plan. The Guy family never got to enjoy their retirement. They never got to spend a single day in their new home. They never got to watch their children grow old or see their grandchildren grow up. Instead, their story has become a lesson, a warning, a haunting entry in the darkest corners of true crime. And perhaps most unsettling of all, had Lisa not missed work that Monday? Had her boss not followed her gut? Had the police not looked a little closer? The house might have stayed silent longer. The truth might have remained buried, but it didn't. Because sometimes, even in death, the voices of the innocent find a way to speak. And this time, they were heard.